Thanks very much. I appreciate the introduction, Mike, and I'm really pleased to be your first speaker today for the virtual symposium for DAPS. It's a real shame I didn't get a chance to be able to come there in person. I had family members who lived in Rockwall, so it would have been good to see family and an opportunity to see everyone in person. So what I want to do today is just talk a little bit about the landscape of PD research. I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see that, what I'm presenting. And I'm sure DAPS office will let me know if that's not the case. So my name again is Jim Beck. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at the Parkinson Foundation. I want to talk a little bit about the foundation as a whole before I go into talking about what's going on with the research. So as you may know, the Parkinson's Foundation is a recently created entity, brought together two legacy foundations, the National Parkinson's Foundation and the Parkinson's Disease Foundation. And it's been a really wonderful journey since. By bringing together two organizations, we've really underscored our commitment to making the lives of people living with Parkinson's disease better and improving and advancing research towards a cure. And I'm going to talk about the latter a bit more today. So the foundation itself has a national presence. We have a number of centers of excellence throughout the United States and, in fact, internationally. And in addition, we also have a number of field offices where we have moving days, including in Dallas, right there. So, we try to be everywhere as possible, but I also think we work very well with community organizations representing that fact that, Parkinson's is a big disease that impacts many people in the United States, and we need many different resources in order to achieve it. So, a shout out to the DAPS team for being there for all of you. What I want to do is now set the stage for what I want to talk about today. And this is a headline which appeared in the Washington Post news story earlier at the end of last year, so about a year ago. And it was about a cystic fibrosis drug that could turn what in essence is a deadly disease into a manageable condition. And it was a tremendous breakthrough. Before, they had been making some incremental achievements, increasing lifespan through symptomatic efforts, but then had a breakthrough about 5 years ago to help a select group of individuals with cystic fibrosis. But this was a game changer that could impact about 90% of the people with cystic fibrosis. The success for this drug was all based in the fact that the foundation and others had invested in the basic biology of cystic fibrosis. And I think that's where we are right now when it comes to Parkinson's disease, making that basic investment into Parkinson's disease research and to try to understand the biology that underlies the disease itself. And the foundation plays, I think, a key role in doing that. What we do is we de-risk PD research. We invest in research leaders. The goal here is to motivate young scientists who have incredible ideas and who also want to devote their careers to Parkinson's disease research. We help really jumpstart their ideas because we often talk about how there's a valley of death when it comes to new drugs that may come on the market, but they fall into this valley of death because they just don't make it out of the lab and into the CVS at the corner. But the same thing happens with people too. We need people in order to do this research. And so the foundation invests in their ideas and in the individuals behind those ideas. We think we do a pretty good job. For every dollar the foundation has invested in research scientists, those scientists have been able to leverage our limited funding and turn that into $5 of follow-on funding from large grantors like the NIH. And so what we do on a regular basis is invest over $10 million, $15 million last year, into promising scientists with a mission to understand the fundamental mechanisms that underlie Parkinson's disease. And it's those mechanisms that are going to be critical for advancing our understanding that can lead to new treatments. But we also invest not only on a national scale, but as you may be aware, on a local scale as well. So, we have these investments through our faculty awards that are done as an example to help support young investigators. These are done in Oregon and Delaware and New York State. But we also invest within the community of Dallas. So the Parkinson's Mind program through the Mind Body Institute of Dallas, helping to support the Expand Move Laugh Connect MLC program that's sponsored by DAPS. And we're also working with UT Southwestern, providing them support so they can generate a community boxing program to not only help people with Parkinson's disease, but also to train individuals on the clinical aspects and get them more involved in the Parkinson's disease space. So what I'm going to do right now is turn to the subject of what I want to talk about, and that's the genetics of Parkinson's disease and our approach to understanding that. So we have an initiative that we've launched recently. It's called PD Generation, Mapping the Future of Parkinson's Disease. And it's a recognition that every person's journey with Parkinson's disease is unique. And we believe that genetics may play a key to understanding the biology of PD. And the idea is that by understanding the genetics better, we may be able to help diagnose and maybe even treat Parkinson's disease as a result. Gene mutations, I have to say, are rarely a cause of Parkinson's disease. We put here, hopefully that in a optimistic sense that 15% of people live with a genetic or familial form of Parkinson's disease, and the rest are unknown. What you may have heard about is called idiopathic Parkinson's disease. And so recognizing that very few have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease, a question I often get asked is, if there are very few individuals with genetic forms of Parkinson's disease, why do we care? Why do we want to focus so much on the genetics of Parkinson's disease? And so what I want to do is tell you a little story about why we're focused on it, the hope that's there as a result of that focus, and the impact that the foundation's making, and ultimately how you can contribute to this process. So I want to tell you a story about two men you may have heard about. One is Winston Churchill, who lived to a ripe old age of 90. He enjoyed his cigars, enjoyed his drink, and he enjoyed his food. He lived through some stressful times, you could say, yet still managed to live a right long life. Jim Fixx, on the other hand, is a man who died at age 52. He was really the force behind running in the United States, helped found Runner's World magazine, but died of a heart attack at the age of 52 in upstate Vermont during a run. What do these two men have in common? What do they have as a difference? So fundamentally, what we're talking about here is different genetics between these two men. Jim Fixx had a genetic mutation which led to high levels of cholesterol in his bloodstream. What I'm showing you here in the middle is the biosynthetic pathway that the body uses to make cholesterol. No need to focus on the specifics of it, but we do want to draw your attention to the red line there for statins. So understanding the mutation that people like Jim Fixx had that can lead to runaway levels of cholesterol in the bloodstream led to the development of a drug called statin. In fact, UT Southwestern played a big role in the development, understanding of this pathway that led to the development of statins. So if I were in person, I would ask everyone in the audience to raise their hand if they knew anyone who had a disease called familial hypercholesterolemia, and that's the genetic condition that leads to high levels of cholesterol. Most people in the audience don't know anyone, but when I ask if anyone knows anyone taking a statin, I see a lot more hands get raised. And what I'm trying to do here is, by analogy, is highlight how we might be able to be making a difference in Parkinson's disease. By understanding the genetic pathways that can lead to the development of Parkinson's disease, it is the hope that we can be able to intercept with a therapy, a drug of some sort, that can then make a difference in the progression of someone's Parkinson's disease, maybe even stop Parkinson's disease altogether. Now, as I said at the beginning, many people who have Parkinson's disease don't have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease. But I think that what this example with cholesterol also illustrates is that most people don't have a genetic form of high cholesterol, but they do have high cholesterol. And what we do know is that even though some people have genetic forms of Parkinson's disease that can lead to proteins going astray, and how they're made and how they're their operation of these proteins. There are people who have these proteins that are gone astray for reasons we don't know. And so the fact is, something like a statin applied to Parkinson's disease might help not only people who have genetic forms of Parkinson's disease, but it might help people with just Parkinson's disease in general. So it's our hope that the development of new specific medicines for Parkinson's disease can help not only those individuals, but everyone overall. So when we talk about genetic forms of Parkinson's disease, what we're really talking about are the next generation of clinical trials for Parkinson's disease. This is the idea you may have heard about where it applies to cancer of precision medicine. So precision medicine is coming to Parkinson's disease. There are two gene mutations in particular that have drawn the attention of pharmaceutical companies. They account for about 10% of all cases of Parkinson's disease. And those are mutations in the LRRK2 gene, LRRK2 gene, leucine-rich repeat kinase 2, or the GBA gene, which is a gene involved in making an enzyme called the galactosupersidase enzyme. So LRRK2 and GBA are both enzymes that are not operating properly in people with Parkinson's disease. The LRRK2 enzyme was identified in 2004, and we find that it's especially prevalent in the Ashkenazi Jewish population, but we also know from research we're conducting as well as others that it's found in the general population as well. GBA is a similarly interesting gene that was linked only recently to Parkinson's disease in 2009. Again, Ashkenazi Jews have a high prevalence of this genetic mutation, but it turns out that we find a lot of individuals have it as well. So these are two genes to watch out for when it comes to new therapies for Parkinson's disease. And in fact, when we talk about precision medicines coming, it's actually here today. There are clinical trials right now that have been underway targeting the GBA gene for individuals with Parkinson's disease with a GBA mutation, as well as individuals with Parkinson's disease and a LRRK2 mutation. So these are early phase clinical trials that have either underway, they're currently recruiting or trying to recruit, or have just recently finished recruiting, and we're waiting for the readout on, and particularly the MOVES PD trial, the venglustat is a therapeutic that they're working on to help people who have the GBA forms of Parkinson's disease. So, the problem here is, that despite the fact that we have these clinical trials around, the next question I would ask if you're in person is that have people raise their hand and inquire how many people know they have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease or not. And what I usually see is there's a handful of people who have maybe done some type of direct-to-consumer testing. But what we recognize at the foundation, as you may appreciate, is that most people have not done any form of genetic testing. Therefore, the field, the community for Parkinson's disease community, is not ready for precision medicine. The vast majority of people just don't know whether they have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease or not. And even if they did the direct-to-consumer testing that something like 23andMe has done, 23andMe and other platforms only test for one single mutation in each of these two genes. There's 6 mutations in the LRRK2 gene that are linked to Parkinson's disease, and there's 24 mutations in the GBA gene linked to Parkinson's disease. So just looking at 1 or 2 spots is like going to a gas station when your check engine light comes on, and your gas station attendant comes and checks to see whether your gas cap is closed. Sure enough, if your gas cap isn't tightened all the way, it can lead to a check engine light, but there's lots of other reasons that can do that. And so, one of the things we need to recognize is that you need to have thorough testing of these genes in order to be able to identify the mutations. So this is where our study comes in. PD generation is a landmark initiative. This is really, I think it's going to be a game changer and provide hope for people who live with Parkinson's disease. So what we're doing here is with a PD generation is to offer genetic testing to up to 15,000 people with Parkinson's disease. This is free genetic testing and genetic counseling. It's important, we believe, that people not only get their genetic background tested to learn whether they have that mutation or not, but also to speak with someone who's an expert can tell you what that means. Our experience, again, from direct-to-consumer testing has indicated that many people who have done that approach can't always interpret accurately the results they're getting. We're also wanting to do our PD generation in English as well as in Spanish, recognizing that there's so many people who want to be able to take advantage of precision medicine, but if they're not included in these research studies, they may be left behind. So we believe it's part of what our mandate is to ensure that no one's left behind when it comes to precision medicine. So our PD generation study is available to everybody, whether they speak English or Spanish. We're going to bank the DNA for future research purposes. What we've recognized, again, from experience of others, is that by being able to have a repository of DNA for research purposes and sharing that in a de-identified way, we might be able to find new genes that are linked to Parkinson's disease. And what our PD generation study is set up to do is, as part of the informed consent process, ask participants, do you want to be notified if we find a new gene that may be clinically relevant? And so people can decide yes, then and there. And they can also decide later on, because we'll ask them again to make certain that people haven't changed their minds about that. That's something we believe is really important. So our PD generation study, we think, will really empower the Parkinson's disease community to learn more about their disease and be able to have some direct action they can take as a result of it. These studies we just talked about are ways to use that information about genetic status and being able to enroll in them. So just to kind of summarize what PD generation study is about, we look to analyze 7 key PD-related genes. There's the GBA gene, the LRRK2 gene I talked about, as well as 5 other genes. These genes are the most common of least common forms of Parkinson's disease. So as I've said at the beginning, only about 10 to 15% of people have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease. But these are the top 7 genes that may cause genetic forms of PD. So we're only looking at this analysis. We do full gene sequencing. So if there's a mutation relevant to Parkinson's disease, we'll find it and report it back to participants. People receive the results in about 6 weeks, and they get genetic counseling as part of this. We do this through our Center of Excellence network, and so it ensures that the clinician is involved in this process. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on. The goal here is not only to advance research and help empower people with Parkinson's, but lead us to these scientific breakthroughs that we hope. If more people know about their genetic status for Parkinson's disease, it's our hope that they'll enroll in these clinical trials that are now becoming available to individuals who have genetic forms of Parkinson's disease. So let's talk a little bit about the progress we're making with PD generation. So we launched this late last year, and we've had about 430 people participate so far in about 7 months. We had to put a pause on because of COVID. As you can appreciate, COVID kind of really sent everything out of whack. But what we've done is amended our protocol to allow an in-home component to PD generation. So that is, people don't even have to leave their home in order to participate in our clinical trial. Right now we have 6 individual sites, and let me just back up real quick and point out that we're also coming to Baylor Medicine, just south of you, as a participating site. So we hope to have that up in line for those who may want to do it in person, or even be more comfortable with talking with a provider within the state of Texas, as opposed to one of our remote participating sites. So what we've found is even before we went to a remote participation, that people were really excited about being able to participate in PD generation. We're in 6 states, California, Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Minnesota. These are the ones at the far right of this graph. But we had participants from 21 states in total. So people are willing to make the effort to come enroll in our study. We've seen that people who've enrolled, or about half of them have been recently diagnosed within the last 3 years, what we call newly diagnosed. People of all age have participated in PD generation, as young as 30 and as old as 88. Not surprisingly, the makeup of those who are participating are mostly men. As we know, Parkinson's disease skews mostly men than female. And what we found is really quite interesting, is that we've identified 51 different mutation carriers out of this population of a little over 400 individuals. So this is as of May 20th, so our numbers have gone up a little bit. But what we found is that about 17% of our participants in the PD generation study have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease. As I mentioned at the beginning, I said about 10 to 15% of people have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease. We were thinking on the optimistic side because the scientific consensus is really about 10%. So when we come in at 17% based upon our findings in the study, it's really interesting because it may help underscore how many people actually have a genetic form of Parkinson's disease, how many more people might be eligible for these studies. And then one of the things to keep in mind is that, as I mentioned, we now have an arm to our PD generation study that allows people to participate from home. What will happen is the individual will get a kit in the mail where it's a buccal swab kit. You may have heard about a spit kit, but this is a Q-tip, a special Q-tip that you rub your cheek with in order to collect epithelial cells. And it gets sent back by prepaid FedEx package. We believe that by having this virtual component, this is, I guess, a silver lining because of COVID, we'd be able to reach out to even more people with Parkinson's disease in order to offer this type of testing. I'll be upfront that we have a lot of people who are very interested in this test. It's close to 2,000 people who have pre-registered, have gone onto a website and expressed interest. And we do have a waiting list at many of our sites. So I just want to calibrate expectations to let folks know that after this conversation today, you're not going to be able to go on and go online and register and be able to expect to participate next week in our study. But we're working to expand the number of sites. As I mentioned, we had Baylor listed as well as Muhammad Ali in Arizona and some other sites. So we're looking to expand the number of sites that are available so that we can accommodate to this incredible interest and willingness to participate in our study. So just to highlight what I've talked about with PD generation is that this is really the first study offered within the PD community that offered genetic counseling in English and in Spanish to be able to reach everybody who may be impacted by Parkinson's disease. It tests 7 genes versus the 2 that some of the others test, and it tests them completely. So you can feel confident that if there's a mutation relevant to PD, that this study will find it. It doesn't test every gene associated with PD, but certainly the 7 most common ones. And our goal is to be the largest genetic study in the United States. So if you want to participate, what you can expect, if you're going to do it via telemed, is that you'll need to have a computer and a webcam, pretty much what you have already if you're listening to my presentation. It's helpful to have a care partner or a loved one there to assist you during the visit because the doctor will want to do an assessment of your Parkinson's disease. It's not a short visit. It takes about 2 hours of your time, so just be prepared because we want to collect not only your genetic information, but some general clinical information about you and your status as well, so that we can have a full picture. Too often we've had just genetic information on individuals, but having that clinical picture can be very helpful to understand how a PD may progress for different genetic forms, but also may elucidate new genetic types of Parkinson's disease. And it'll take about 6 weeks to participate. So if you're interested in enrolling, you can go to our website, parkinsons.org/PD generation. There's a video that we want you to watch, and it's required as part of it. It tells you a little bit about our study and about genetic testing in general. There's an informed consent form that you can review ahead of time so you can get a sense for what is there as part of the process, what you'll be asked to do to participate in the study. There's a short questionnaire to just check your PD status, and then an opportunity to contact an enrolling site that's near you or one where you can schedule an appointment, whether it's in person or via telemedicine. And so if you have questions as part of this process, I want to encourage you to email grants@parkinson.org. We have a couple of my colleagues are checking this inbox and ready to answer any questions. And again, feel free to visit parkinson.org/PD generation to learn more about our study. So I'm going to pause here and say thank you for your time today. And I really feel honored to kick off this virtual symposium at the Dallas Area Parkinsonism Society.